I've known Robert Beauchemin for about 20 years from some organic groups that we've both been a part of, and knew of his milling, and it was quite impressive to see how far along he's come over the years, and what a big operation he's had, which not only for himself but also is a marketing opportunity for the farmers in Quebec that are growing organic wheat.
One of the things that the farmers had really looked forward to learning about in Quebec is more about the milling process than how to set up infrastructure to do that. Even though the mills that they're developing and designing are a little bit smaller scale, the setup would be very similar. So how grains are brought in, the levels of a mill from cleaning grain to sifting flour, and how that whole system flows, and that was probably one of the most helpful items to the producers that were there.
We'll come in here. First break, we're just crushing it, trying to extract this, just this. In the summer, we'll push extractions up to 77, 78, and we'll have ash content as low as 52. We dress our stones about every 3 weeks. We're running 24 hours a day, so we give them a lot of wear and tear. But they also have a sequence. When the stones are freshly dressed, they will do the harder wheats. They'll do durum or kamut, then the hardred springs, and then they'll go into softer wheats. And
what if you don't have a corn?
For soft wheat, we'll dress them.
You'll just dress them.
We'll dress them.
You can only dress one mill at a time, however, right?
Yes, they're dressing a mill every week, about every 5 or 6 days. And we have a maintenance crew who do this during the night shift. And it's very fast. It takes about an hour and a quarter. They're really good. Oh yeah, they're really good. They're two guys. One guy takes the boat, the other guy's. It's like changing tires on the F1. It's nice to see. I've seen millers in France. You talk to them about dressing stones. They say, "Oh my God, it's 3 days," and I say, "No, it takes an hour and a half." That'll do 100% grind, pulverizes it. It's a coarse grind, but it's a... But with this type of flour, we can then size it through lab screening, so that you can see how it segregates itself. So it has a direct correlation to hardness of the wheat. So you can monitor your tempering by monitoring segmentation of particles.
It is hard because bakers are not scientists in the strict sense, So Jim may say one thing, and I might say another, and Jeff might say a third thing, and then I can imagine as a miller you really tear your hair out sometimes because they're not always telling you the same thing.
The way I see it, we came up with this knowledge that you probably bakers have over time. We don't need necessarily all the scientific. We verify things with the science. But we don't need to test everything scientifically. I think that you're working with something that is alive, like the soil. We try to explain everything scientifically with the results that we get in farming and fertility. There's sometimes it's the contrary that happens from your theory. So I think it's important to have the experience that you have as bakers, and then take some of that and try to verify things scientifically.
Mm-hmm.
There's
and
a mill
you
in
live with
Minnesota
it.
They do a loaf on every lot number.
Oh.
They post it on their website, and they keep a constant comparison. And they actually do a sourdough fermentation rise, because that's what their basic client base is.
Yeah, we buy flour from a mill in Kansas that has a bake test, but he's distilled it down to a very scientific kind of bake test, you know, and he's measuring the volume of each loaf. And then some of these are subjective measures, but he scores them all so that he gets a bake test score.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to do it.
There's all of these artisan bakers in Vermont, and how do we get them to use local wheat? They're afraid of it, really, and every time you ask somebody, well, it's not there, or it's not good enough, or it's not what we want.
We can talk to bakers. It's if you can talk to them, they understand and they can adjust, but they don't want to adjust, you know. They cannot work with the flour who's going up and down, especially when it's going down.
You don't bake numbers. You're baking flour. It's so nice to bake numbers sometimes. And you know, you have all these gizmos, all these analytical things. There you go, you have to bake bread. Bring some
Thank
bread.
you.
Bring some bread.
What I took from the milling aspect was, you know, their level of organization, the field work that they're running with their growers, and their relationship with their customers, particularly the big bread company in Montreal.
Like our mission at the mill is really to create flours, specialty flours, to respond to the market. But we also have some values, and the values are environmental values. So I think that we share the same values. Maybe the mission is not yet understood, because that's what we're going to see right now at Premiere Moisson. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done with the bakers to develop some products that corresponds to what they need. And that means working with variety, working with fertilization, trying to basically understand how wheat works.
So it's a pretty large operation. I think it's around $124 million in sales per year. If we include all the stores, it's just over 1,000 employees. We work in partnership with the Moulin de Soulanges for our raw material, our flour. We use 75% of the wheat that's grown in Quebec. It's bought by Premiere Moisson. We use it, and which presents other challenges, because it depends on the region where it comes from, the way it's grown and all that. I think those are factors that usually we see it with the rate of absorption of water, which it fluctuates, and so there are constant adjustments that we have to be that we have to do while we use the. But it's what sets our product aside. It's different. It's slightly more expensive, but it's worth it, because it's actually good quality ingredients that we use in basically everything that we produce here.
Victor told us that all the bread flour they use to make 30 to 40,000 loaves a day comes from Moulin des Soulanges, mill southwest of Montreal. Premiere Moisson is a third owner of the mill, together with Robert Beauchemin's mill Milanaise, and as well with the farmer cooperative. Production of wheat in Quebec has ramped up in the last few years due to the mill. In 2008, they had to get 40% of their wheat from Ontario, but last year they were able to get all of their wheat from Quebec. For me, what I learned was that our concepts of grain quality may not work for artisan baking. There is more to grain quality than protein, falling number, dawn levels. There's quality of the protein, and that really appears to affect how the flour performs in baking. And one of the things I like to say there is that the truth comes out of the oven, that you can't just look at some of these numbers and figure out how it's going to bake.
You know, wheat is not wheat is not wheat. As it comes from the field, there's a certain maturing that goes on in the harvesting, and again, this is how you can maintain a higher quality and minimize the loss in quality of a changeover by slowly changing the ratios of what you're using in the milling process. What we've learned from Robert is to take the beginning portion of the new crop, and the first month that you mill with it, mill with 10% new crop, 90% old crop. The next month, 20% new crop, 80% old crop, and in that way transition over, and it allows to maintain a higher quality of and uniformity of results in turning the grain into flour, and then the use of flour within the baking requirements.
One thing about Quebec was that the grain infrastructure is huge. As we drove up and down the highways between the mill and the farms, you would go past tank farm after tank farm where somebody was, buying grain from the farmer, then reselling it back to the mill, whatever. They had that whole process in there.
I think that Quebec has a lot to learn from Vermont and Maine, and Vermont has a lot to learn from Quebec as well. So I think that we're creating some maybe more value-added systems that they might think of. We see a lot of Quebec farmers that come down to Vermont for educational programming, to see the research that we're doing, to learn about this project, to use even the grain testing facilities that we have. So it is a two-way relationship. It's not all one way. So I think it's great that we're learning from each other, and we are adding value to their process as well.
I think the most important thing in sum that we learned was that it's possible. It's possible to develop a local bread wheat system in an area that's like ours. And the bread was really good.